we got Batista out of the way.
Well, it's not out of the way. I want to know who these guys are. Say it's bullshit.
No, I can't.
Yeah, I bet I lie to show consideration.
Tony, how you doing?
All right.
How you feeling?
Are you? I'm fine.
This is a long time in the making. So I'm glad you're here. Your name is Tony Napoli, a.k.a. Tony Nap. If you had to pick like a word or two to describe your life, what would you say? Would you say first father? Would you say, you wouldn't say mobster, would you?
Well, I wouldn't say gangster.
No, you wouldn't say gangster. But you were part of a gang, no?
Yeah, I'd say syndicated in the streets.
Syndicated in the streets. What's the difference between syndicated in the streets and gangster?
That means illegal number business, illegal gambling.
Right.
Syndicated, it's no inheritance.
Okay, so before we get this thing started, I just wanted to set a couple of ground rules. Number one, there's no questions I can't ask, right? Is that correct?
Ask anything you want.
Okay, good. But you did say to me, though, that if I ask you a question that might be inappropriate or something, you're going to give me some kind of a look.
I'm just going to look at you until you go on to another question.
And then rule number two is, like I stated, if sometimes, you know, we talk on the phone,
yeah,
you like to.
I get carried away.
Is it fair to say that you like to talk?
No, because it makes me look bad with the boys.
I'm talking about just in conversation alone.
No, that's a bad expression.
Okay, was it fair to say you just said carried away? What does that mean?
Well, get carried away in conversation, expanding on it, extending on it, and then being reminded with an open mind that there's more added what I have to tell you, even though you only...
You say a couple of extra words that you shouldn't say. Okay, all right, good.
But don't say I like to talk.
No.
That sounds like a stool pigeon.
No. And we know that you don't like stool pigeons, right? So your wife passed away.
Yes.
Laura, which
6
was what
months ago.
Has it been 6 months ago?
6 months ago already.
Wow.
June 5th.
I kind of sense something different in you. Is this something that, in other words, this part of life now? I mean, you're 83 years old. Your wife has passed away. You're alone in the house. I mean, is this something that is probably maybe the toughest part of your life? And I know you went through some tough parts in your life, but is this kind of...
Most of the time, my lifetime, I always looked at everything as a challenge for me to accept things.
Right.
And to challenge it and confront things. But this here, I have no words. I have no way of relaxing. I'm still depressed. And it's going to be 6 months next month, yes, the 5th of every month.
You have no way of relaxing, but has that always been in your life? Does that follow you around?
What?
Well, you said you have no way of relaxing now.
No, I can't
know, but
find a way.
Has that always been a constant in your life, that you had no way of relaxing?
No, I've always, earlier in my life, I relaxed with a bottle of Dewar's.
Right. That took
and
the edge off.
Alcohol, but I've found sobriety 24 years ago, and I know now I relax by meditating. But this is a challenge because I wanted to outlive my wife because I didn't want to see her go in a nursing home. And if I wasn't here to take care of her, she would have been in the nursing home because my daughters had their own families and things to take care of.
You wrote in the book, it is the woman that helps the successful man to reach his goal. And it is the woman who is the backbone of the family.
And my wife is in that category like my mother.
Right.
And my mother died young.
Right, so now essentially...
47 years old.
And Laura was how old when she passed?
74.
Wow, still young.
She had kidney failure.
I know sometimes you have a tendency of talking about all the mob stuff. And you know me, I'm not really interested so much about the mob stuff. I mean, the stories about Frank Sinatra and all these stories you have are interesting. But I want to talk more about what went on in your mind throughout those years. You were drinking. You were obviously, people drink to escape. What were you escaping from?
Well, there was a period of years I drank, but there was, when I was early, I didn't start actually drinking heavily until I was about, I would have to say about 29 years old.
Yeah, but still 29 years old is not an old age to start drinking. That's still fairly young to start drinking heavily.
But I started drinking heavily then, yes.
Right, from before then, all throughout your 20s.
Before then it was off
teens.
and on, like weekend drinker. I was always working out, always in shape.
Right.
I was sparring in the gym 3 rounds a day and stuff like that.
So growing up, you had a pretty good childhood? And was it fun?
No, it was rough because my mother struggled to keep us together. There was 5 children, 4 boys, 1 girl.
And your dad was always going out?
He was always hustling, moving around. He was in jail, out of jail, and if it wasn't for my mother during the Second World War, my father was doing time in Sing Sing for 4 years. We would have been in foster homes, but my mother managed to keep us all together.
I've been wanting to do this for a long time. I know you don't give a rat's ass, but I wanted to have this conversation. And I want you to loosen up a little bit because you're always very serious with me for some reason. And I'd rather laugh through this or cry if you want to cry. It's good ratings. Do you cry?
I don't cry.
You don't cry?
You
wrote something in the book about something being unmanly, that somebody was crying or something, doing all these unmanly things. Is crying an unmanly thing?
Cry alone.
Cry alone. So crying alone is not unmanly. That's manly, crying alone. But when you cry in front of people, that is unmanly.
It's also honest crying, not put on crying when you're alone.
I don't want you to cry putting on. I want real tears from you.
That's it.
What's the possibility within the next 2 hours that I'm going to get you to cry in front of me on camera?
Well, you probably know my feelings of what I'm going through, that's why.
You know me long enough to know I'm not making light of your feelings.
I
just kind of,
understand.
we goof around a bit. Okay, so now you're 83 years old, you're by yourself in the house, your lovely wife Laura's passed away. You must have been through quite a lot of stuff, going back and forth, hospitals and stuff, even before she passed away. In other words, the drama started.
I drove her to dialysis treatment 3 times a week. I fed her, I gave her medication. I had no home care after the first 3 weeks.
Right.
I took over myself.
You had a rough marriage in some ways because your life...
Hardship and suffering all the way.
Right, all the way.
All the way.
Right, because you were a drinker for many years, you would go off on these binges, you'd be missing for 3 days, come back home for a day or 2, and then go back out and do it all over again, right?
That's right.
Right. So during this process when she was actually, sick, were there tender moments between the two of you towards the end when you were helping her through this stuff? Was there some reconciling of the fact that you were, in some ways, you were a jerk to her many years? Were there tender moments between the two of you? Was there stuff where you sort of reunited again on that level?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, the love became stronger as she failed each day.
Yeah.
My love for her became stronger.
Right.
And her love definitely became stronger towards me because she relied on me. And I knew that.
Right.
And I wanted to be there with her, but I never realized after she's gone, I never realized the loneliness I'm going through now. I never anticipated this. I just want to live long enough to take care of her. And then when she's gone, then I go on my way. But I'm very depressed.
You're very depressed
I
now.
never thought I'd face this challenge.
Right. And this is probably one of the hardest challenges you ever faced,
Yes.
right? Right. And so, but you have your daughters, though. You have your 3
I
lovely
have
daughters.
my 3 daughters. They're wonderful.
Helen,
yeah.
Tanya, and Veronica. They've been sort of by your side throughout this whole thing, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want to do that. They want to.
Do the kids feel any animosity towards you for all the shit you've done?
I don't know, because my wife Laura, again, if they did, they would see her, and she schooled them. Don't complain to Daddy, complain to me.
Right, but
If
you don't sense that now, though.
No.
In other words,
no,
now-
now it's sincere. Now they come to me because it's feeling they want to.
Right.
And if they feel, I know if I am moody or depressed, then they know why. It's not against them, it's my feelings, what's happening inside me.
Right, and they have a certain level of sympathy. They have a certain level of compassion for you.
Of course, they know that I called them and I had to put the medics on the phone to tell them about their mother passing away. I couldn't, but I gave her, my wife, CPR for 15 minutes before the medics got there, And I was told that I was given a CPR, and she had passed away 2.5 hours ago.
Oh, God. Your daughters and your wife as well, they were used to a certain kind of guy.
Yes.
A belligerent guy.
Yes.
And you were kind of the leader of the pack. You were the boss of the house, all this stuff. And now you're an older guy. I would imagine your daughters now, even now that your wife has passed away, they see a very different person
because
than
now,
the person that you used to be with them.
Right, because now they come directly to me where they had to go through my wife before they got to me.
Yeah, but it's also the fact that they probably, I would imagine, they look at Dad and they say, Dad is not the tough guy. I'm not saying you're still tough, yes, but he's not the tough, belligerent guy he once was. He's an 83-year-old guy now, and he's in his twilight of his years.
Well, during my younger years as a father, my daughters, all three of them, they always said on holidays or on Father's Day, my birthday.
I remember you told me this.
It's, Dad, we're not God-fearing children, we're Father-fearing children.
Did that bother you when they said that?
No.
It didn't bother you. I would think it would bother you because why would any father want their daughters to fear them, to fear him?
Because I know that it was an expression they were using.
So it was more of a joke thing, though, right? They were kind of joking.
Something in jest.
In jest, right? Sure.
And because no matter what I did, the money was there for them to go to college and whatnot.
You know what's funny? I always got the sense that if you and I met, 25, 30 years ago, we would have a very different relationship. And I think that maybe I wouldn't like you as much, and maybe you wouldn't like me as much. So it's weird how time kind of changes things, and now you're sort of in the twilight of your years, and things just change automatically. I noticed that we went once to pick up your granddaughter at school, Gianna.
Yes, Gianna was. Yes.
And I was really kind of touched because, now this is after your book came out.
Yeah.
And we go there, and naturally, what are you going to see at school? You're going to see a bunch of mothers waiting for their kids, right? So there's a bunch of 20, 30-year-old mothers waiting for their young children, and you, right? And me. And I was surprised to see that when we went to the school, all the mothers, oh, hi, Tony. They were kissing, hugging. They all kind of received you well. And I was thinking, do they know?
They know me.
They know you.
They had my book.
They have your book.
And they know
and
the
they
names.
Still kind of received you in such a way that was kind of warm, right?
Well, most of them were married to accountants, lawyers.
You would think, though, that the mothers there at the school, they'd be like, oh, here's that crazy guy.
There was a few of them felt that way.
Oh, yeah?
There were a few of them.
You felt the burn from them a little bit?
They were very loose with their tongue, not saying here's a racketeer or a mobster or a gangster. They say, oh, he's a mafioso.
How'd that make you feel?
Well, they didn't say it to me.
Right.
But I was told by others what they had
Right. You
said.
can't blame them for feeling that way.
Of course not.
Yeah, because on some level they say, well, my kids are coming out. Do I want my kids to be around this mafioso, as they say?
The words you learn, some you'll pick up from as slang expressions in the streets.
Right.
And mafiosa and mafia. Mafiosa is one individual. Mafia is a group.
After that, something weird happened for me. It was a little out of school, so to speak. Gianna came out. She was maybe about 5, 6 years old at the time, maybe 7, I don't know.
Well, she's 12 years old today.
Yeah, so that was a good whatever.
Well, she was in the...
she was in kindergarten or something, right?
She was in the... in that school, she was preschool, then kindergarten, then first grade.
All right, let me just finish the story. And when she came out, all I saw was, Poppy!
Yeah.
Arms open, arms open, boom, you came. And I said, well, I said, this fucking guy, there's a little bit of a mush in him. I mean, you were, so what I saw in you was I really saw, despite the fact that all this stuff, we were getting to know each other and you were telling me all these crazy stories, despite that fact, it was very kind of heartwarming to see you with your granddaughter and to see such love there with the little girl. And she loved you. And so the thing was, it wasn't just the love that you were giving her, but it was also a granddaughter returning the love to her grandson, to her grandfather. And kids understand a lot more than we think they do. And in this case, I saw Gianna really understanding the love that you give her, and it was kind of reciprocal.
When Gianna was born, her father and mother were working, and they had daytime jobs.
Right.
And I and my wife took care of Gianna until they got home from work, 7 o'clock at night, pick her up and go to their house.
Oh, I see. So
But
you
she
spent a
was-
lot of time
She
with her.
spent a lot of time.
Right.
And she used to take a nap lying down on my chest.
Wow.
And when she was 2 years old, 1 year old, after
Right.
that she was too old to
You
do
still got
that.
a good relationship with her now? Yes.
It doesn't end.
It doesn't
She
end, right.
comes to the house. You
Still
see
the
her-
same old warm hugs?
When you saw her at that age, she's 12 years old, does the same thing in that door,
Right.
looks for me first.
She's 12 now. She still doesn't know about your life, does she? Have they told her anything?
The father and mother don't let her read the book
Oh, I see.
until
Okay.
she gets older,
I
but
see.
it's in storage for them
I
in
see.
their house.
I got you. Let's just state for the record,
Well-
her father is a cop.
Her father is more than a cop.
So your daughter
He's
married a
special-
cop.
He's the sergeant at One Police Plaza.
Right.
He's in charge of terrorist attacks.
When I went to the wedding, it was a lot of, like 350 people there, right?
350.
At Leonard's of Great Neck.
350.
And you told me that one side was all cops, the other side was all
Mobsters.
mobsters,
Yeah,
right?
mob guy.
And everybody got along well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody danced, they drank, everybody was, I
And the
remember it was a festive,
entertainment.
there were no fights or anything that day at the,
no.
right. Did you feel edgy because there were cops on the other side of the,
No.
no,
No.
no,
No.
no.
No, because I've been to other weddings like that besides my daughter's wedding,
Right,
and there were high-ranking police officers at those weddings.
felt the tension
too.
there?
Wise guy weddings.
right, you felt tension there. Was there tension? Was there tension?
No tension.
'Cause that's
no,
obviously an
because I
odd
was
thing.
used to it.
Yeah, but it
wasn't
is an
new to
odd
me.
thing, though, to have a wedding and to have like mob guys and cop guys in the same room, and they have to celebrate a marriage.
Yeah.
It is very
Well,
weird.
because there are high brass cops that have relatives that are in the mob life,
Right,
and they go to their weddings and funeral parlors when they pay their respect.
right.
With Gianna,
Yeah,
when you saw her for the first time
Right.
in that schoolyard coming
Right.
out of classes,
right.
you didn't see the ice cream truck down at the corner because that's the first thing I would get.
Oh, I see. Okay, so the
I
question
don't want to
is,
take 100% credit.
so the question is the love real, or was she just using you for the ice cream
No,
truck?
the love was real too. No, it was a Mr. Softy truck.
Right. When I talk about Gianna, you kind of lit up a little bit. You
Oh,
get a little
of
bit.
course.
There's like
Well,
a warm.
because now
a warmth.
she's a softball star, 12 years old.
Right. You go see the games and everything?
No,
No.
they're out in Long Island all the time.
I know you love talking about your life and all the crazy
Yeah.
shit that happened, but I would prefer. I know we've had conversations about this.
Talking
I'm
about
more
my
interested
immediate
in
family.
immediate family and what went on in your mind.
No, it doesn't matter to me what we talk about.
Okay. You wrote a book, My Father, My Don, and the book's done well, right?
Yes, 9,000 copies.
Wow, that's amazing, man. And you sold
A
that all on your own without a
self-publisher,
publisher. You published independently. That's
Yeah.
pretty good. And you got a lot of Facebook followers as well, right?
10,000.
That's amazing.
But I had to separate the pages. Facebook only allows you 5,000 on each page.
I remember that. Yeah.
So I have 5 pages,
Right.
and I have 10,000 total.
So basically, you write in the book, I live more of a life than most men can even dream about. I live 9 lives.
Of course, I was told that. By whom?
By who?
Wise guys.
By
they
wise
said
guys.
they wish they could have lived this life when
Right.
they were. But
Well,
before I wrote the book, they knew my life.
you claim you were a boxer, a soldier, an enforcer,
That's right.
a casino boss,
Yeah.
which I want to get into all this stuff, a fugitive,
Yes.
which we're going to discuss here today,
yes.
right?
Tony
A hustler,
Rio. Yes.
and above all, a husband and a father,
Yes.
period. And then
And
you went
son.
off separate line and a son.
Of course, I was independent from my brothers and sisters. I was an outcast.
I know, but that has nothing to do. You didn't say and a sibling. You said and a son.
They didn't look at me as one of them because they always needed some kind of help from my father.
Right.
Where I ran out and I got it. I did my own thing to
You
get
felt you were the
financial.
most independent sibling out of all of them?
Yes.
Yes. Out of all the crazy shit that went on in your life, is the book the biggest achievement that you've done, you think? Or one of the biggest achievements?
No.
No, you don't think so?
No.
Well, besides being a husband and a father, of course. That's the biggest.
There's
Okay.
more than that.
And a son. But the book, though, really sort of doesn't, it encompasses your life. In other words, you started writing at 26, you said, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then you started drinking at 29, and then you just went off, right?
Yeah.
The thing is that you started this book at 26, so obviously it was very important to you. You're 83 now. The book came out when you were in your
remember,
70s, right?
I started putting it into a story form
Right.
at 26.
Right.
But it goes back to when I was an older teenager, like 18, 19.
Right.
I had notes, yes.
Right.
Those are the same notes that I carried over when I was 26
Right.
that my father
Why were you in
destroyed.
such a rush to do that? Because you understood at 26 that world is forbidden, particularly back in those days. It was more forbidden
Yeah, well,
then.
because
Now
I
people
had
are a little bit
I
chattier.
had a co-writer named Lee Mortimer.
I gotta
Yeah,
stop.
ahead,
I
yeah,
gotta stop
well,
you. Why were you so adamant? Why were you so inclined to start writing? Because you know that your father must have
Because-
preached to you that, hey, we just keep
I
our
was
business
going-
our business.
I was going with a showgirl then that was very close with Lee Mortimer, a writer for a New York newspaper, and he wanted that information.
I understand that, but there must have been something in you though that
Oh.
you felt, because you're giving me what he wanted. But
Yeah.
I'm asking you what you wanted. There must have been something in you that you wanted to make your bones in life on some level. You were 26 years old,
Yeah.
and maybe you wanted to establish yourself as a writer?
I got discharged from the United States Air Force when I was 22 or 23 years old.
Did you feel lost after you got to? Because, you know, kids,
No.
they get started out.
I was a sergeant in the Air Force.
Right, but then the career that left you after that when you got
No,
discharged.
but
That was
thing
the
is,
end of...
when I came home, my father treated me like I was a young teenager. Do
Right.
the right thing and you'll be all right.
Well, what was the right thing in his eyes?
Say yes and obey yourself and show
Right.
respect
And
for
you
your
wanted to be
friends.
independent of him.
And of course.
Right. And on some levels, we hear the
Because I was
stories...
a sergeant of men for this country.
Right.
And
Well,
who am I going home now? Going to be treated like a young teenager?
agreed. I understand that. I get that. And, you know, in large part, this conversation and your book and your life really deals with the guy who's trying to sort of get out from under the grasp of his father on some level.
Yes.
Because we hear stories about kids always trying to, because your dad was larger than life, right? So let's just say really what he was. I mean, your dad, his name is Jimmy Napoli, and basically...
He was known as Jimmy Knapp in the
He was
streets.
known as Jimmy Knapp, right. So basically, I mean, he had a gambling operation back in the 1960s where the New York Times reported was making anywhere from $150 to $250 million a year, which to me is sick money in the 60s. So if we're looking at nowadays, it's $1 billion and more, right? When you think, and that's just in the New York City area, right? And a little Westchester maybe.
5 boroughs.
Right. Very well respected by that whole world, every family. He had guys like J. Edgar Hoover, right? There was kind of didn't Hoover tell him basally keep your mouth shut, keep it low, and you'll
No, he said keep a low profile and
Keep a
don't
low
build
profile.
a swimming pool in your mansion.
Right,
in New York. In your townhouse, you've been there.
Well, there's no swimming pool.
Well,
There was no pool
He
there.
had a leak in the roof, and he had roofers go there to fix it.
Right.
And the FBI surveillance outside thought he was building a swimming pool on top of the roof.
So what? Hoover said don't build a pool.
That's right.
Right.
Hoover was at a restaurant called Stone Crab Joe's in Miami Beach. That's where my father was in the corner table at the same restaurant, and Hoover didn't tell my father directly. He told the
he had somebody
owner,
else. Interesting.
Stone Crab Joe, tell that Jimmy Knapp, keep a low profile. He's starting to get noticed.
Is that fair to say that
Hoover
Hoover was?
appreciated
He was.
the
I
mob.
mean, this has been written many times. Hoover had a little bit of a relationship with those guys.
Hoover appreciated the mob guys.
You're the head of the FBI.
They
How do you
kept-
appreciate criminals?
They kept neighborhoods clean.
Right, okay, good. Let's go back to you and your dad. So basically your dad was a very respected guy and he's a very successful guy. So in his world, he was probably one of the most successful guys. As a matter of fact, I remember an article back in 1985 in Forbes magazine, and they had the top 50 most powerful mobsters. And I think, excuse me, I think your dad was 19 or something like that
And then
on the list, 19, 20, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So,
I got the article at home.
right, so there's no doubt very successful. So you must have felt this thing inside of you where it's like, how am I going to break out from the grasp of this guy and make my own bones, make my own roads, and actually go out and do something on my own that is equally as big as my father?
I was mixed up.
You were mixed up, you were confused. And so this
I
is
had
the
no
weird...
positive thinking at all. I didn't worry about a thing because of him. I knew there was always, if I
When you
needed
say no
any-
positive thinking, why did you not have positive thinking? Didn't your mom instill a sense of you, a strong sense of who you are in you?
My mother was...
A sense of confidence?
My mother's schedule was to prepare dinner every night, different dinner if possible,
Right.
and to, and she didn't want anybody cleaning the house. She did it herself.
So essentially, though,
That
you're
was my
saying
mother.
there really was no supervision. In other words, nobody really sat you down and sort of gave you a support
No.
system. And so
No.
if you had that support system, do you think life would have been better?
I don't think so, because I wouldn't have listened. I walked away from everything.
Yeah,
I
but when
walked
you're a
away
young
from-
kid and the support system starts at 4, 5, 6 years old,
Yeah, I didn't look at it that way.
you don't look at it that way.
No, no,
And on
I
some
thought
level,
I'd never have a problem.
And on some level, we could say that you are your father's son because, like father, like son, when your
Well,
dad was
I
a
wa-
young age, he was
yeah.
a little bit of a...
Well, let me put it this way. With all my incidents, violent ones and other incidents,
Right.
and showing disrespect towards mob guys, my father used to tell me time and time again, after one incident after another. So he answers that question for me. He says, I'm tired of looking in the mirror.
Oh, I see. Okay. You see, he always...
He was no different than I was
Right.
when he
right.
was growing up.
Right.
Until
Your other brothers were different?
Yes, they were different
They
because they
kept
were
in
well
line
behaved,
more. Right.
well behaved, got what they wanted.
What do you think happened with you? How come the DNA with you? All the siblings they kept in line. You just kept on
Well, because my father
like a rabid
rejected
dog.
my father rejected my mother's side of the family.
Oh, I see.
My father, because my grandmother, my mother's mother,
Yeah.
my mother's father died at 34 years old,
Wow.
massive heart attack.
So can we?
So my mother's mother was the gumara of Frankie Yale.
Yes, you that's in the book,
And
right?
that's how my father met Frankie Yale, through
Right.
my mother.
You ever blame your dad for the way you've reacted in life, even being so rebellious on some level?
No, I could say that, not to blame him, but
Well, he wasn't around, number one. So when parents are not around,
caused-
kids
I
tend to
would-
become rambunctious.
yeah, he had me leaning towards my mother because she was always there for me.
Right. So you had this rebellious quality, and that kind of lasted throughout your whole life, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was kind of a love-hate relationship because this lasted. You had this almost like resentment for your father on some level because he was successful and you wanted to break out from his grasp, right?
At dinner tables with the boys, present him, me, my brothers, and whatnot.
You felt they
He
didn't
would
take you
always-
seriously?
And somebody, well, one of his men, he had over 900 men.
Did you feel like he would give them more respect than he did with you?
Well, this is what I'm leading
This is
into.
just my son. These are my guys
No, he would say at the table,
here. Right.
these are my sons, but they'll get no more privilege higher than you,
Right.
to his friends.
Right.
And I resented that.
Here's what I see when you say that to me, okay?
Well,
You, on the one hand, you claim that you resented the fact that he treated you no different than his men because
Right.
you wanted, so basically what we're saying now with that sentence is that there was love lacking. You felt like there was love lacking from you. Hold on one second, time out. On the other hand, you wanted to break out from the grasp of your father. yet you wanted the love of your father and you want a little extra than he gave to his men. So those two thoughts kind of contradict on some level. Does that make sense to you? Because on the one hand, you wanted to be a son and you wanted to be treated differently, but on the other hand...
No, I felt that I should have been treated differently.
Right, but on the other hand, you wanted to break out from the grasp of your dad.
In another category, in other words, not to be in that environment with those same men, not to be treated above them with those same men,
Right.
but treat me differently as your son. Don't treat me like you're treating them, and saying that there's everyone here is at the same level, even if you're my son or you're not my son, we're all the same.
How about privately?
How
about privately?
Privately?
Privately. In other words, he said that in front of his group, but privately, did he give you something different?
Yes, and he would say it to everybody. So when it comes to TN, that was the nickname he gave me.
Right.
My initial.
Yeah, but privately, though, did you feel a little bit more than he gave the guys as you being his son?
Yeah, because the income, he created the income for them.
Right.
And he would say to me, listen, 10 bar at the Highway Lounge.
Right.
And what are you doing? They're pushing me behind a bar.
Right. Right.
And I could get that job without him.
I applaud what he did was because he was trying to teach you hard work. Go get, stop being a lazy son.
No,
stop being lazy, Jimmy Knapp's lazy son, and go work behind the bar. In other words, he was trying to show you how to make a dollar.
It wasn't me being lazy. I did things myself.
Right.
And now when certain things...
Is that such a bad thing, though, to have a father put his son behind a bar and just
when he
10
had
bar?
other sons, why didn't he put them behind the bar?
Did he not?
No,
He never
had
put
one in another business.
he never put the other siblings?
Another delegate, another, come on.
Maybe because he thought that you're a little bit of a fuck up. You go out and you start doing crazy shit, so he wanted you close by to him, and he wanted you to, he almost like he's watching you on some level. Maybe he wanted you close because he knew.
No doubt about it, yeah.
Yeah. So years you'd have this tension between, but you also felt the love of your father. But
yes, very much so.
You
yeah.
did, right. However, though, there was a moment when I was sitting in your living room one day, and it was just me, you, and your wife Laura at the time. And I asked you a very pointed question. I said to you, do you feel like your father loved you? And your response was very weird. Your response was silence. You didn't answer yes right away. You just stayed there, and I saw in your eyes, and you were just thinking of a lot of things, a lot of thoughts going through your mind. And eventually that silence was broken by your wife, eventually, because I felt she sympathized with you, and she said, lovingly to you, oh, come on, Tony, your father loved you. In other words, she was trying to show you, come on, don't be silly. Of course he loved you. But the weird part was when I asked you that question, there was this dead air. You just went silent and you were thinking.
Because I didn't know if he really loved me.
Right, well, now.
I never know.
Now, well, I ask you again, do you feel differently now? Do you still feel like you're still unsure if he loved you or not?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know. It was a confusing relationship between him and me.
You feel he loved your other brothers and sisters? Sister?
Well, I think
or do you feel like he
they
treated
were
everybody?
in need. There was no place for them to go. They didn't know how to go get a job.
Did you feel like he loved your siblings more than he loved you? If there was any love there?
No, I feel as though
he loved
there
everybody
was a
equally.
cold feeling for a lifetime. Yeah, cold feeling, nothing warm.
Right. You say this, but on the flip side, you were the one that said to me, and I think you mentioned this in your book as well, that without your dad, you would have been a fuck up, and you would have either been dead or in prison.
No, in his business, when I treated his men that way.
If you stayed in his business,
yeah,
right.
If I didn't show respect to the people
yeah, but there's
like
other
him.
stories, though. There's the story in Mexico. There's other stories.
New Mexico.
New Mexico, I'm sorry, yeah, New Mexico. Yeah, but so there's a lot of other times besides hanging out with the guys where there was a lot of fuck-ups, right?
Yeah, yeah.
There was a time when you wrecked his social club. You went in there with a baseball bat, was it?
That was his bar, the Highway Lounge.
Right, and that was kind of like his operation base, right?
Yes.
And you went in
and
and
I
you
wanted
wrecked
them to get the message.
You wrecked the whole place.
And
Right? What message were you sending when you wrecked the place?
I sent them the message that that I will get married, and he said, no, you're not.
Right, right. So why was
To
he against the
Laura.
marriage, though? Because it seemed
Because-
like I got the sense that he liked Laura.
Yes, he liked, he
Yeah.
was defending her, not to marry me.
Oh, I see. Okay, so he went. So it wasn't so much that he thought that Laura wasn't good for you. He thought that
I
you
wasn't
weren't good
good
for
for
Laura.
her.
And Laura worked for your dad. That's how you met, right? She worked at the bar.
Well, she worked as a waitress and behind the bar as a waitress.
Right.
And then she worked for him. He had he was associated with a record company called DI Record Company. We're cool in the gang.
Right.
And she was the bookkeeper for that outfit.
So here's the deal. I want to get into this.
Laura supported her mother and father. That's why.
Right. Okay. So after you wrecked the place there, he called you on the phone, and he basically said, "Look, it's cool. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine." He
No.
kind of but he
Okay.
called you on the phone, and he kind of
said,
led
"Meet
you
me
to believe.
outside Laura's house,
Yeah, and he was kind of
mother's house."
calm. He didn't seem angry or
Calmed
anything
me
like
into
that.
going outside, and he had the crowbar. Yeah.
Right. So he took one of those old. Now, you know, a lot of young kids out there, they don't remember what those tire irons were like.
Yeah, you
They're
could
just
take the
solid
bolts
steel.
off, and it had a hook on it.
Yeah, but that's a heavy thing. And
Yeah.
he took this thing and he started whacking you over the head with it.
I still got 25 stitches in my head.
What do you mean you still have them? You don't have the stitches still.
No,
You took the stitches
no,
out.
but
I'm
I
just
got a
saying,
scar there, yeah.
he could have killed you, right? That's a very severe moment from a father and a son. Fathers like to hit their sons. They might punch their sons.
Yeah.
But to take a tire iron, which is a
It
solid
wasn't
steel.
unusual in those days for a father to beat his son up if he was showing disrespect, especially in his lifestyle.
If you take
Because you don't touch his property the way I did.
that moment, are those moments, do they contribute to the thoughts that you think your father didn't love you? Because he could have killed you there.
No, not that he didn't love me. I know he loved me, but
So you do think he loved you?
Yes.
Because, but just a few minutes ago you said you're not sure.
no, I know he loved me,
Right.
But-
in his way.
and not in the warm father-son type love,
Right.
all right? But he also wanted me to behave myself because he claims I embarrassed him by me doing my activities without respect for the wives.
Did you embarrass him?
Sure I did,
Right.
yeah. But they came after me. I didn't go to them.
Right.
I had the after-hour places. They came there, and they said, "Why you?" They would say to me at 2:00 in the morning, "Why don't you do the right thing?" And your father would take care of you better than what you're getting now. And I'd say, and I'd be drinking, and before I start throwing punches.
You know what I noticed about you? There was even moments in the book, but in some ways, I mean, you always try to get out from the grasp of your dad and become your own man. But in many ways, I see you kind of emulated him in a lot of ways. The tinted glasses, similar hairstyle. That's true, right?
I got a pupil problem from the lights. I wear the tint. They help me relax the glow
Right.
from the light. But they're not sunglasses.
Well, you have a
They're
description.
prescription.
You have a description here of your dad in the book. He wore big tinted sunglasses even indoors, which you do too as well.
Yeah.
Which gave him an air of mystery, which I get the sense you also like an air of mystery around you as well. The glasses veiled his eyes and made it difficult to read him. Is this something where you feel, because you're painting a facade there basically. You're saying a guy who doesn't want to be, he wants a poker face all the time, right?
Yes.
His hair was perfectly coiffed with Brill cream, which
Yeah, I
is
use
an
Brill
old,
cream.
you still use that? Okay. He smelled like a man too. What does a man smell like?
Brute.
Okay. There's several passages here in the book, that's just one of them, where I really got the sense that you wanted to, in many ways, you wanted to emulate him. You wanted to copy him on some level.
When he went to jail for the last part of his life for 7 years
Yeah.
for promoting gambling without a license under the RICO Act,
Yeah.
he had my brothers handling the number business,
Right.
not me. So I went out and I spoke to the controllers.
Right.
They weren't getting paid on time.
Mm.
In the book, I say my father handpicked his supervisors. They were all blood related.
Right.
A couple of them were brothers. They didn't come and ring my doorbell and said, listen, they were pocketing money after payouts, and they were supposed to bring so much to my stepmother and so much to my sister,
Right.
but not to me.
Right.
So they weren't paying on time because they were two habitual gamblers.
Right.
I had to do something.
Mm.
So my father's in jail, so I had to prove to myself
Right.
that I don't have to tend bar, I don't have to work at a retail store. I went out and I found out that the controllers were complaining they weren't getting paid on time when they got hits.
I know, but the question is, initially what I asked you
Yeah.
is that you wanted to emulate your dad. So on some level you're saying when your dad was out of town.
Or in jail.
Yeah, in jail, right. So is it fair to say that on some level there's several things going on here? You wanted to sort of become him on some level to show him, look, Dad, I can do what
he does.
right?
And I did. I
Right.
took $250,000 a week in number business from the blood-related people.
However, though, you said that he gave you a construction business and you fucked it all up and then it went bankrupt.
Not a construction
Oh,
business.
was it? What was it?
It was a lumberyard.
A lumberyard, okay.
But I didn't louse it up. It was already $400,000 in the hole when I got there.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that, okay. Is it fair to say you were under the control of your dad on some level? I mean, under the control of your dad, because you always tried to sort of, it's this push and pull situation where I feel at times you didn't want to be under his grasp, but on some level you were under the control of your dad because of the
Definitely.
fact, well, because of the fact that he always provided for you. He gave you businesses, he gave you money, and he bailed your ass out plenty of times.
Right.
When you were stuck in New Mexico, the governor,
Yeah.
all these stories, right? So there is a sense of like, it's almost like a love-hate relationship. We discussed the fact how successful your dad was in that world. There was a chapter in the book where you talk about you were a young kid and you went down to Cuba with Batista and Meyer Lansky.
Yeah.
I mention that to show how high up on the chain your dad was in that
Oh,
world.
yeah. And Meyer Lansky put that meeting together.
Right.
And the actual meeting took place in the Luau restaurant on the 79th Street Causeway in Miami Beach, Florida.
Regardless, we're not talking about who cares, who gives a rat's ass where it took place. It's amazing, as a 3-year-old, did your dad tell you this? Because there's a lot of stuff in
Never.
You remember that as a 3-year-old child? You remember sitting on his lap?
No, only I remember from hearsay in social clubs about others talking
I understand
about my
that, but in the
father
book, though,
Batista.
you have dialogue of what your dad said, what Batista said, what
Yeah,
Meyer Lansky
yeah,
says. How do
yeah.
you work that dialogue?
Yeah, I was at the next table with my mother.
Oh,
Restaurant.
you weren't at that meeting.
No.
Were you weren't at the meeting?
I was
In
we
the
were at
book,
another
I
table.
got the impression that you were on his lap while he was meeting with Batista and Meyer
No,
Lansky.
it was a picture taken sitting on his lap.
Oh, I see. But when the meeting happened, you weren't there. I can't because the question is why would your dad? He's having a meeting about this very serious stuff. Why would he bring a 3-year-old and sit him on a lap?
Because it was a front for anybody observing him. That it was a family thing, a friendship thing, not a business thing.
Oh, I see. That's interesting. Okay, well, that makes sense, I guess, on some level. Sure, I got you. Okay.
Yeah, it was like, hey, he brought my mother, me, my other brothers, and we went to the Luau restaurant.
Look, I asked this stuff because I told you when I went to see Jeannie one day. I had a funny story about Jeannie when she was in the Bronx nursing home, okay? Yeah. So this was after she did a lot of drugs, crack, whatever she was on. She got beat up severely. And I went to see her one day at the nursing home. And by the way, for the record, Jeannie is your stepmom. This is the second wife. After your mom passed away, this is your dad's second wife, who was much younger than you were.
27
I'm sorry,
years
much younger than he was.
my father.
You were kind of similar in age, right?
I was older than her.
Yeah, but not by
3
much.
years older.
3 years older, okay. So, and I went to see just Jeannie, how's your day? She goes, oh, I had a visitor. I go, wow, visitor, who came? She goes, Hitler came. I said, Hitler? I said, why? I said, you know Hitler? I said, oh yeah, we've been friends a long time. I said, what? I said, Hitler just walked through the door, he signed in, they let him come in. I said, Hitler's a pretty bad guy. No, he flew through the window. I saw him flying in, we were waving, and he flew right through the window. So now, obviously, at that stage of the game, I started thinking, Jeannie has lost her marbles. I mean,
Did she know who you were?
She knew who I was.
Did she think you were a psychiatrist?
No, she knew who I was. However, though, when you get dementia, you know, the wires inside the mind, it's just, you know, they're all fucked up. Sometimes you know this, you don't know that. Yeah, whatever it was,
But
right?
sometimes she played the game thinking you were a doctor where she could...
Never played any games. I never felt she was playing any games with me. However, though, the question to you is, I wonder sometimes how much of it is you were hallucinating, perhaps, maybe. Your memory doesn't work that well. And I'll tell you why. We're going to get into the Frank Sinatra story. You told me a story about Frank Sinatra, and I think it's in the book too, right? Is it in the book? Yeah.
Chapter 21.
Right. So Frank Sinatra, this was back when you were on the casino floor and you were boss there or whatever, and he got a little belligerent. We're going through the abridged version of the story to get through it quickly. And the guys owed Sinatra some money, and he got a little belligerent. I want my money, right?
No, that was the Sands Hotel. That was in 1967.
Right.
But of course, I met Sinatra in 1958 at the Sands.
Okay, but the story that I'm saying specifically is he was belligerent on the casino floor yelling, I want my money, and the guys there, whoever they were, they didn't like the fact that he was making a scene.
He wanted a $50,000 marker.
I see,
That means a tray of chips so he could gamble.
but the marker, though, was up against his salary, right?
That's right.
Right, okay, yeah.
And he already had money against the salary.
Right, but the point is that those guys, whoever they were, your friends, they didn't like that he was making a scene on the casino floor.
Right.
Right. So they took him upstairs in the room.
No, only one guy took him upstairs.
Okay, were you there?
Carl Cohn, yes.
You were there. So you
But I
walked up.
wasn't in the room.
You weren't in the room, but you told me somebody clocked him in the mouth.
No, not somebody. Carl Cohn.
Carl Cohen clocked him in the mouth.
Casino manager.
Right. Clocked Sinatra in the mouth.
And he did it
Broke
in
his
private.
tooth.
It knocked his bridge out.
Knocked his bridge out. You say he had dentures?
Whatever.
Okay. He knocked those dentures out, right?
Yeah.
And basically, did you tell me you had to drive him to the dentist to get his teeth fixed?
The house car.
The house car. And you and Sinatra went to the dentist so he can fix his teeth. Now, that's a fascinating story because you never hear stories like that about Sinatra. However,
I had to calm his men
you don't have
down.
any weapons on you, right? Do you?
No.
Okay, good. I'm just checking. Okay. So the thing is that I've spoken to other people in that world, and frankly, higher than your stature in that world.
Yeah.
Okay. And they said to me, there's two guys in particular, okay, that I know fairly well. We're not like super duper great friends.
If they were considered a higher level, they were in the drug business.
No, they were a higher level because of who their father was.
Oh.
Okay? And they said to me, horseshit. That's a bunch of nonsense. Nobody would ever punch Sinatra in the face the way he did.
They're full of shit. Tell them Ty said so.
Well,
it happened.
It's funny because here it is now. You're sitting here and you're saying, tell them I said so.
Yeah.
They're full of shit.
Yeah.
And then when I talk to them, they say, tell him he's full of shit.
It's already on record what had happened.
All right.
You hear me?
And by the way, these guys met Sinatra as well. They knew him as a kid. I don't think they're as old as you are. Well, maybe one of them is.
Nah, they're probably younger than me.
No, but one is no. That's not true. They're near your age. They're not far.
Well,
off.
they don't know.
They're younger, but they're not as old.
Listen.
I understand that, but they had the context and the connection to know better as well. And they said verbatim, they said that would never happen with Sinatra.
Yes, it did.
It did. Okay, look, I don't know. I wasn't there. You saying it did, they say it didn't, but I was just curious to get your reaction as to...
Sinatra was used by the mob.
Yeah.
When he performed all over the country, when the mob guys wanted to get together from different parts of the country,
right.
Wherever Frankie was performing when he was in Vegas, that's where they would go.
Right.
And Sinatra, Tommy Dorsey, had a lifetime contract with Sinatra back in the
Yes,
early
that
in
I
the
know, but we
30s.
don't have to go too deep into this.
Well, they tell these punks that, and this
No,
is
well,
why he's
please, don't
committed.
call them punks. I don't want to have a.
Let them come after me. Who the hell they bullshitting?
right.
And if they're made guys, it's because they did nothing. They were related to somebody.
Well, look,
That's
listen.
what's going on
I don't want to
today.
have any tension. They say it didn't happen.
There was filmed. There's newspaper articles on it. 1967 at the Sands Hotel, because that same night, Sinatra doesn't go on the stage. Pat Hendry was his
And by the way, I'm
comedian.
just an innocent bystander here. I'm just
Okay, good
reporting.
enough.
I'm just
But
reporting what I heard. Okay.
I don't like when
Please,
someone
Mr.
says
Napoli.
bullshit,
Okay.
because I was there.
Right, I understand.
Billy
Okay.
Rizzo was there. Sinatra's right hand man.
Oh, he was. Yeah,
He
but
was
he
there.
allowed that to happen?
He had
Oh, because
because he knew who the people were that beat
I
the
got you.
hell out of
That's
him.
an interesting story. Okay, all right, good. We got that out of the way. We got Batista out of the
Well,
way.
it's not out of the way. I want to know who these guys are. Say it's
Oh,
bullshit.
no. I can't.
Because
Listen,
they're conning you.
I ain't a snitch.
They're conning you.
No, I don't know if they're
And
conning me.
especially when you say above my level.
I hear one thing there. I hear one thing there. I'm not casting any aspersions. I'm not casting
they're
any judgments.
youngsters that grew up in the mob. If they're made guys, their uncle or father made them because they're related.
I understand that.
That's
I don't.
probably
I don't know. I don't even know what. I don't get into their business. I just know them socially, and they know of the book. They know of the Sinatra story, and they just said, nonsense.
Listen, I'll inject something, a name.
Yeah.
This name is also a witness to that.
Is the name
incident.
still around, or is it
Yes,
passed
and
away?
he's still
Well, I don't want you to
singing.
name names. If he's still around, I don't want you to name names.
Why? I'm gonna.
I don't want you to
The
name
guy wrote a story
Do it
about
on somebody
too.
else's show. I don't want
I'm
you-
not the only one. I'm not the only one who wrote that about that incident.
Right.
It's
Okay.
in other books.
All right. Okay.
And those people were there. One guy was an assistant casino manager that wrote his story.
Right.
And every year he goes to Europe, and what he does on stage,
Right.
he tells that story
Right.
as well. I'm not the only one that was there.
We did the Sinatra thing. It's an
Yeah.
interesting story. I thought it was very interesting. I wanted to get into some moments in your life. I want to talk about at 59 and what caused you to get sobriety, right? So, chapter 1, the book, you write about this crazy moment that you had in your life. You came home after what, a 3-day drinking binge, as you usually do. So you came home to sober up for like an hour or two or whatever it
No, I
was.
go right to sleep.
Right to sleep, and you see your daughter Tanya's home.
Yes,
Right?
the,
And you got a
the
little
bedroom
belligerent.
door was open, her bedroom door.
And you got a little belligerent, and nobody would really want to talk about it. And at some point, my voice sounded hoarse from my 3-day spree. You say, why is Tanya sleeping? And then Laura says, you haven't been home in 3 days. Did you forget yesterday was her birthday? You forgot her birthday. So that's another fucked up
19th
thing.
birthday.
Right, and you would drink 19, okay. So you totally dismiss Laura asking about your daughter's birthday, and you just carry on in your belligerent way, and you say, let me ask you again, and maybe I'll get a straight answer this time. Why is Tanya sleeping? Why isn't she at school? Is she sick? And I would imagine you asked her in a way where you maybe struck a little fear in her?
Well, a deep throat, deep voice. Come on.
Okay, all right. So anyway, so we discover now, finally, you walk into your daughter's bedroom. You ask, why is she there, right? And she was a little bit, she didn't want to tell you. She's like, I don't want to talk about it.
My oldest
And
daughter told me.
you were adamant about it, though. You got a little belligerent with her?
No,
No.
my oldest daughter told me what happened
She was
before
home at the time?
I went to the bedroom.
I got you. Oh, I see. I
if
see
you
what you're
read
saying.
that correctly,
Right. Well, I don't have it verbatim yet, so, but,
my oldest daughter told me what happened.
right. So,
And
at
I
some
went
point, your mind just went, what was going on in your mind at that? You
Yeah.
started getting the
I
level
called-
of anger.
I called my crew members to come to the house.
How many guys?
2.
2 guys, right.
And,
And now you knew at the time that, let's just say what it is, some kid in school
yeah,
had
and-
sexually assaulted your daughter.
yeah.
Right. Did they say what kind of sexual assault? Was it just he grabbed her, or like what?
No, it was in the girls' room in the school.
What happened in the bathroom, though?
I never went further in detail with my daughter.
Right, I see. I got you.
But
okay.
the other 2 girls who went into the girls' room,
Oh, they found.
He ran.
Oh, I see. Interesting. Wow.
He ran.
Right. So now you got this level of rage in you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you went there with two guys. You've called two buddies.
I called up two guys. Now I called up these two guys to come to the house right away. We're going to go to the school. And when they got to see me, I told them what it's about. And I said to
Were
Tanya,
they pissed off too?
Well, I was pissed off. They're pissed off.
Yeah, sure.
But they were out with me at the place all night too. They were tired.
Right.
But I had two cars.
Right.
One car to take my daughter Tanya in
Yeah.
with one of my crew members,
Right.
and the other one.
Your daughter didn't go willingly, right? She didn't go. She didn't want to do this, right?
She didn't want to, no, but
Right.
she did.
Right.
Because I didn't know what this punk looked like.
So did she want to point them out to you, or she still?
No, she
didn't
did
want to go
not
along
want
with it at
to,
all.
and
Right.
I did. I grabbed her by her arm. I said, "Put your coat on." It was November. It wasn't a
So
bad.
you forcefully grabbed her.
Yes.
Right.
And I said, "Put the coat on, and you get in the car." Which one of my crew members, I don't want to mention his name. He died anyway.
Right.
And I'll follow, and you point this punk out to me at the college, and then you leave with my other crew member. He'll bring you right back home.
You went in there, okay, and she pointed him out to you.
Yeah, in the
and now
hallway.
you know what he looks like, right?
Yeah, because I said, just stand against the wall by the classroom. It was her first period
Right.
that she had. It was biology.
Well, she said something interesting. She said, "Just promise you won't kill him."
Yeah.
Now, this is a 19-year-old girl
Yeah.
telling her dad, "You promise
Yeah.
you won't kill him." Now, when she says, "You promise you won't kill him,"
Yeah.
did she feel that there might have been a level in you where you might kill him? You might
Well,
erase him off the earth?
Only because when my crew members used to come to my catering place, and we lived upstairs from there,
Yeah.
and I made them check their guns all the time in
Oh,
the
I see.
check room.
So she thought that there might have been a
she
moment
saw
where
guns.
you might go, you might go that. Well, yeah, but okay, fine. But seeing guns is one thing.
She knows
Knowing that you might use
she
it is
knows that
another thing.
She knows I've used it already in the streets
Right.
against some other.
She knew that as a child?
Yeah.
She knew that as a child. Wow.
Not as a young child.
Right, but in her teens, 17, 18,
I had
whatever.
a beef in the streets, and she knows that I shot a guy.
On your block?
Yeah.
On your block?
Yeah.
Where'd you shoot him?
In the ass.
In the ass. Your dad shot somebody in the ass.
Yeah. He never gave me up.
Is that the preferred method of the ass? The Napoli method? Right.
No, because they're running away.
Right. Oh, I see. I got you. So
She knew about that. Yeah.
She knew about that. How
She
old?
didn't see it, but she knew.
And this was on your block.
Yeah, right.
What do you think? How do you think that? How do you think? So this was Tanya knew. Well, all the girls probably knew about it.
Yeah.
How do you think, as a father, don't you think? Wow, I wonder
I
how my
didn't think
daughter's.
about anybody else but to give that guy some kind of a lesson.
Right, right. But you didn't think, don't do it on the block. Calm down.
No.
Let me take this guy in an
No,
alley,
I
do
it right
something.
away.
You didn't care at that moment. So you had a certain level of rage in you at all
Yeah,
time.
she knew it. Yeah.
Right. And the rage persisted throughout 3 decades, right? Throughout the drinking, everything. I mean, is it fair to say that you lived your life in rage?
I said my marriage to Laura was hardship and suffering for her as well.
Right.
But she stayed with me because we had the 3 girls.
Right.
As they were growing up.
Right.
And she knew of my disagreements with my father, giving this one this business, that business, and giving me a business that owed $400,000.
Was the intention to kill him? Because you say Tanya, and she goes, "Daddy, promise you're not going to kill him." And you said almost like begrudgingly, "Okay, all right, I promise."
I could answer that question.
Yeah.
She gathered from what she had, what the people fed her in her mind about her father.
Right.
And that's it.
Right, I see. All right, so you leave her, and she goes back in the car, and you go.
She stares against the wall by the classroom. I didn't know it was a biology class. That's her first class. And this punk is in that class with her.
Right.
And now he went over to her. She was against the wall.
And when you
He
say
put his
biology class, they were dissecting frogs and stuff like that in the
That's
class, right? Yeah.
And I was dissecting him.
Right.
So he put his hand on top of her head as though to say whatever he was trying to tell her,
Oh, wait a minute. She spoke to him at that moment?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I thought she just pointed him out.
No, she gave a nod, and she didn't speak to him.
In the book, don't you say that she just pointed him out and walked away?
That's right, yeah.
So, but now you're telling me though that they spoke.
No. She spoke after she left him to my crew member.
Right.
And she said, yes, that's him.
Right.
But to him, the guy directly, she didn't speak to, no.
So you see this guy, and you start walking towards him, and you said something like you addressed him, and he says, "Who the fuck are you?"
Yeah, and I said, "I'll show you who I am."
Right.
And so I pushed him through the door.
So now there's a biology class taking place. All the students are there, and they're doing what they're doing in class. And next you know, the door just bashes wide open,
and he's on the floor.
it's you and him, and you're sort of
he's on the floor.
You're pummeling him, right? And he takes his knife out. Now this is all in front of the classroom, in front of the students.
He didn't take his knife out.
Oh, you took the knife out?
I took the knife from his cowboy boot.
Right. So you take the knife out, and you pull his pants down, and you start slicing off his erogenous zones, you said. So basically, the first question is how do you slice a nipple off? A nipple is a very tough thing nipple is a very rigid,
I said slice the nipples.
You sliced the nipples.
I didn't say off.
You didn't slice it off, right. So you just kept on.
I sliced his balls.
You were lacerating, you were sort of just cutting up the nipples. And then at some point,
wherever he hurt my daughter's body at, I turned him and I grabbed him and turned him over and sliced the cheeks of his ass.
You grabbed his balls, you grabbed his testicles.
Yeah.
And you started to.
No, I didn't grab his I grabbed his penis. That's why I didn't cut that off.
Wait a minute. In the book, doesn't it say
It doesn't say that.
Doesn't it say you castrated?
It says, but not holding his balls. I was holding his penis.
I thought it was the other way around. I thought you cut his balls off.
I did cut his balls, but not his penis. I was holding his penis.
Wait a minute. I thought you cut his balls off, and I asked you once privately, I said, well, why didn't you go for the penis? And
I was holding it.
And you said there was so much blood that you couldn't find the penis.
No, yeah.
That's what you told me.
Yeah,
you said you cut his balls off first, and then you said, I said, well, why not go for the penis? Because that's really what he uses for assault. And you said there was so much blood you couldn't find the penis.
I was feeling around there. I held it.
And this is in front of kids and the teacher and everybody. Were there people throwing up or anything like that?
Witnesses against me. 21.
The door flew open to the biology class in session. The punk fell to the floor. The students and the teacher were scared shitless. The punk reached for his boot. I remembered what Tanya had said about his having a knife in there. I kicked his hand away and I pulled the knife from his boot. That's when the slicing started. I was possessed, attacking the punk. I wanted to hurt him the way he hurt my daughter in the same place, so I sliced both of his nipples. I sliced the cheeks of his ass. His blood shot everywhere, on the floor, the walls, on him, on me. I can still hear some of the female students screaming and crying in the back of the room, but I didn't give a shit. I didn't care about them. Then I got the idea about castrating the fuck. Now, a lot of cursing in the book. I know you and your dad, you're against cursing, but you cursed in the book.
In my co-writer.
The Italian way of punishing a rapist. I wanted to take away his manhood, humiliate him. I wanted him to feel what he made my little girl feel, but 10 times more. So I sliced both his testicles. This is what you wrote in the book. I sliced both his testicles. When it came time for me to cut off his penis and stuff it in his mouth, that was your intention? You wanted to slice his dick off and put it in his mouth?
No, not just my intention. That's the sign.
Oh, that's some kind of Italian sign?
That's right.
I see, okay. There was so much blood that I couldn't find the fucking thing. These are your words.
But doesn't mean I didn't find it. I couldn't find it.
Again, the dementia, though, because initially, just a few minutes ago, you said to me, no, you cut his dick off, and then the ball...
I didn't say I ever
You didn't say that. I got it on tape.
I don't care. I never said that. I said that I held that freaking...
Anyway... This
when I held it, it was in there someplace.
This scene is really just a phenomenal scene. It's such a fascinating scene because on the one level you think, okay, it's understandable because the kind of rage you had, any father on some level would want to do that, but not so much with the knife and the castration.
And you don't do it in the classroom.
Maybe beating, punching, baseball bat, this kind of thing.
But not in the classroom.
Not in the classroom, and you'd wait, right, exactly.
but I had
You were
alcohol
like
in me.
a heat-seeking missile, like a ballistic
Alcohol.
missile. You were ready to
And
just...
my father had passed away a year and a half before that happened.
Right. This is primitive, savage.
Yes.
Very savage.
Yeah, sure.
And yet, when all that stuff happened and everything was finished, this kid was laid out, he's bleeding on the floor.
Yeah.
You calmly got up. You had blood all over you. And you walked calmly out the hallway and you stopped and you spoke to a security guard
Yeah.
at the school there.
Yeah,
and what did you tell him? You asked him for a cigarette?
No, I had the cigarette.
You had the cigarette. You asked him for a light.
A light, yeah. And then the phone rang in his boot. These security guards don't have a gun or anything. The phone rang in his boot about what happened
Right.
to stop anybody trying to leave.
What was the security guard? What was the security guard's reaction when he obviously saw a
He
guy?
said, no,
he saw a 59-year-old man
he
coming,
didn't think it was,
walking towards him with a bunch of blood on his.
Yeah, well, when you say a bunch of blood, I had a blazer over me too.
Oh, so you hit some of the blood, but he did see blood on you.
Yeah, but anyway,
Was he nervous? He must have been nervous.
I could tell he was nervous when he gave me the light.
And you were fully prepared not to run.
That's right.
Right. Before you did this, did you say, I'm going to do this and not run? Or at that moment that came and you figured on not running? In other words, did you say, I'm going to go in there, beat him up and run away? Or did you have this plan that I'm going to go do what I'm going to do and then I'm going to stop and wait for the cops to arrive?
I did not realize I was going to go that far with his knife.
I see. I got you. Okay.
And now I saw how far I went, and I threw the knife on the floor.
At what point did the moment cross you where you said, fuck it, I'm just going to sit and wait for the cops. I don't want to be running.
And I heard the phone ring in the booth, and the security guard said, "Hey, don't move. I have to hold you here."
Right.
At that moment. And
Did you start feeling maybe
I
it's
thought
time to
my life was over with. I thought the kid was dead.
Oh,
But
I
he
see.
didn't
Oh,
die,
you
otherwise
thought-
I wouldn't
oh,
be.
You
I'd
thought
still
you
be
killed
in
him.
jail.
Oh, I see. I got you. You got basically a slap on the wrist for what you did. You got a slap on the wrist because the judge looked at you, took pity on you.
Well, we didn't want to say too much about her. She used to be a lawyer, and she used to handle a lot of
Who's
my
she?
father's.
Oh, you mean the judge used to be a lawyer?
Dwyer.
Wait a minute, hold on. You're telling me
Former Mayor Dwyer's niece.
wait a minute. The judge was a woman and she used to be a lawyer and she used to handle a lot of the stuff that your dad used to do?
Yeah.
So you're telling
Gambling
me the
cases.
slap on the wrist was a favor? Sort of?
No.
Well,
Nobody approached her. Jimmy Breslin came to court. He's a writer. And he told me, he
Right.
said, listen, she's good. She's good. She was a lawyer. She should dismiss herself, but she's not doing it.
you knew Breslin well?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, though, she basically
Socializing.
said, you went on there and you did a heartfelt plea to the court, to the jurors, right? And you said, the short version is, I reacted the way any father would, right?
I said, when you go home to the jurors,
Right.
I said, when you go home, you're not going to see my daughter on this witness stand because I made a deal that I would take the stand and my daughter doesn't. I told the jury, when you see your daughter or your granddaughter going to school in the morning, that's my daughter.
You got 3 years?
I got 3.5 years.
3.5 years. And it wasn't even hard time. You got 3
no,
years
it
in
was
a...
hospital at Fort Hamilton.
It wasn't maximum security. It wasn't
No,
a tough...
No, I got...
It was kind of like camp on some
level. The first 60 days, I was there day and night.
Right.
And then I have a family, so they decided to give me probation. I go home. But I had to report there every morning.
Right.
Except Sunday.
Oh, so you were going home back and forth?
Yeah, I was on probation. They gave me probation after the first 60 days.
God bless.
Because it was a sensitive case.
The one thing you did wrong is you took a sexual assault survivor and you put her back in that scene. And second of all, I said to you once that your daughter must have felt a tremendous amount of guilt on some level because she knows she must love you, right? You're a father.
Yeah.
And she sees now what you did for her. And so on some level, she must have felt a tremendous sense of guilt because even though she is not in any way, shape, or form responsible, she still feels a sense of responsibility for what you've done.
The VA hospital gave her therapy.
Right. How long?
For 1 year.
For 1 year, right.
About all this.
Right.
Well, I was doing 3.5 years.
Sure.
And my wife, they gave her therapy too. and to how to live with a recovering alcoholic.
Right. What was the relationship with you and Tanya after that?
I admitted and said, the treatment I gave that punk is not the treatment he needed, because what I did, causing you these hardships, that you had to go to therapy.
Sure.
Because how you felt about it, she had a guilt complex,
Right.
you know? And I
Right.
said, but now...
Have you discussed that with her? Have you had heart-to-heart with her? And
yes, otherwise
have
I
you
wouldn't
apologized?
Yes,
You have.
otherwise I wouldn't have been able to put it in the first chapter without her permission.
Right. And so you looked her in the eyes and you said, Tanya, I'm sorry for what I did.
Yes.
Yes. And she
She said-
received it well. She says,
she
okay,
said-
Daddy, we're good.
She said, it's your way of showing me how much you love me.
That's interesting.
That's her answer.
That's interesting.
Dad, it's your
Well,
way
I'm sure
of
she was
showing me.
kind of half joking
Yeah,
there
yeah,
as
yeah.
well.
She
She's trying to
was
lighten up the
driving,
mood,
yeah.
right? I want to go over some stuff that for years you had a sense of pressure because you had another life. You raised
Yes,
3 lovely
yes.
daughters, and you had
That's
a
not in the
marriage,
book.
a long marriage with your wife, Laura.
Yeah,
However,
48 years.
However, though, there was a time in your life. How old were you when you had to go on the lam?
26, my 26th birthday. That's how I
Your
remember.
26th
Everything was
birthday.
I was 26 years old. Everything.
Okay, all right, good.
My 26th birthday.
So when you were 26
I was
years old,
26 for a year.
when you were 26 years
Within
old,
that
you weren't 26 for 2 years?
No. Within that year, when I was doing the story, and also when I left and went on a lam.
So basically, at 26 years old, you beat the shit out of a cop, and he was a pretty big cop out in Jersey. He was a sergeant in the New Jersey Police Department.
Oh, he was a captain.
He was a captain, even worse. Okay. So you beat the shit out of a captain in the police department, and it wasn't by yourself, right? You had some guys there that...
I had one of my crew members.
One of your crew members, right. So
Ex-fighter.
So that's a pretty big deal now. You beat the shit out of a cop and you tell your dad, and your dad says, oh, you fuck up. What did you do that for, right? And then basically he says, go. And you said, where am I going to go? And he goes, anywhere they can't find you. And you picked New Mexico.
No, I didn't pick New Mexico.
How'd you-
I went to the Port Authority in New York. The first bus living was going to St. Louis.
Oh, I see. So you went to you went there
St.
first?
Louis. I only had $50 on me.
Oh,
I had
that's
no
interesting.
money.
So, and then after that, how'd you find yourself to go to New Mexico?
I was hitchhiking.
You were hitchhiking. Wow, no
That's
kidding.
how I found Tucumcari.
What was going on through your mind? In other words, here it is. He gave you money, right?
Complete numbness.
And he must have given you some money.
No money.
He didn't give you money.
No, nothing.
How did you feel? You must have felt a
Complete
great
numbness.
and a great sense of helplessness, hopelessness, fear.
Yeah.
Was fear in the equation?
No.
Oh, come on, man. You're a
No.
26-year-old kid.
No,
you got
I-
no money. You don't have the
no.
support of your dad. You're out
I
alone.
threw my identification away. I'm going to make a new life.
And now you became Tony Rayo.
REO.
Right, which is quite the...
But I knew I could make a living. Why?
By the way, Tony Rayo is quite the matinee idol name. That sounds like Clark Gable, or it sounds like an actor's name, right?
Yeah.
You didn't want to be called like Barry Schwartz or something like. You
No,
picked Tony Rayo. You picked a
right.
really good name, right?
Yeah, and I wanted to sound Italian, not Spanish. Rio would be RIO.
Right. Eventually, you wind up in New Mexico and you meet this woman. And by the way, let's stay for the record, right? Because this is the first time you're actually saying this story
Yeah.
publicly. Because for years, Laura,
Yes.
God rest your soul, I always thought Laura actually did the wrong thing here in not allowing you to speak of the story, because regardless, that was a part of your life before you met her. It was before you guys met, right? And so you had created a whole different family there. You met this woman, and you have what? You had 2 kids with her?
Yeah.
Right. And the kids are fully grown now. They got to be in their 40s, right?
In the 50s.
They're in their 50s, right? And so...
Early 50s.
Right. And how long did you spend with those kids? So this was 26 years old, and then eventually,
4
how long were you
years.
on the 4 years? So you were on the land for 4 years, and you made a home with those kids, and then at some point your dad says...
He came out there and found me in Albuquerque.
And so basically, when he found you, did he realize... Was he pissed off? What the fuck? What'd you have 2 kids here for?
He was shocked.
He was shocked.
He thought he would find me as a gigolo or something.
So you had these kids out of wedlock, and the woman that you had the kids with, she stayed there with those 2 kids, and you went back to New York.
No, she came back. I took them back to New York.
Oh, you did? Okay.
My father came out there, left an envelope with $2,500
Right.
and plane tickets to fly back because he was with my stepmother
Right.
when he came out there.
Right, right. You had a relationship with these kids or no?
I still do till today.
Right, you still do. You write letters and stuff so they know of you. You just speak on the
Telephone
phone?
calls and email.
I see, I got you. Okay. So for years, though, you always kept up that relationship.
Yes.
Okay, did your 3 daughters, did they want to see who their
I
half
kept them apart.
siblings are? They kept them apart. Yeah, but did they say, Dad, we want to meet our brothers?
I told them use your own discretion what you want to do.
Right, did they ever?
Not that I know of.
No, I see, okay. And this was never spoken about, even among your daughters, because Laura set the rules. This is not what we speak about, right? Is that correct?
That's right.
And I feel for you here because I would imagine it would create quite a bit of pressure for you because this is a part of your life and you wanted to discuss
I
this.
flew out there a few times to see them.
How did Laura react to that?
Yeah, it was all right, yeah.
She
As
was
long
okay.
as they didn't come here, you know.
I see, I got you, okay.
Why? She didn't want to mix up in the family with the 3 daughters I have with her
Yeah.
and explain who those people are, but rather explain it to them without the presence.
It makes no sense, though. In other words, what I think, look, on the one side, I understand how Laura would feel because it's just a whole separate life that you had there.
Yeah.
On the other hand, though, I think that she should have given you the level of respect and maybe even put it in your book too and be more open about it, which I got the sense you wanted to be, but she actually, and you know, kudos to you because you respected her enough to actually abide by her wishes. How does it feel now talking about it publicly? Do you feel like it's kind of a weight off your shoulders on some level? 'Cause you're talking about this publicly.
open-minded.
Right.
I've spoken about it many a times with the family.
You got a good relationship with these sons that you have?
Yeah.
It's good.
No,
it's
I
not
have
great.
a son and a daughter.
A son and a daughter, right? So it's not great though, right?
My daughter is great, yeah. She's
Right.
always on email 3 times a week.
Really good. Okay,
And
cool.
holidays, I just said to the,
She looked
I
like
said,
you, or she looked more like her mother?
she looked like my mother.
She looked like your mother. Wow, interesting. Wow. So you got a good relationship with the kids. Is the woman their mother? Is she still around? She's still, because you guys were at the same age at the time, right? She's got to be up there now in years.
Who?
The woman you had the kids with in New Mexico.
Oh, she died, and I married Laura. She died of breast cancer.
Okay, all right.
Laura took care of my daughter and my son when they were 9 and 7. Their mother died.
Oh,
and
I
they
see.
came from New Mexico to me, and Laura grew them up.
Good. Laura raised them.
Laura grew them up.
I
Their mother
I don't know
died
if
when
I
they
knew
was
that. So basically, Laura raised them until what age?
till they were teenagers out of high school,
Right, and then
and
after
they
that,
went back to New Mexico
to stay with the mother's
with
side
the
of the
mother's
family.
side of the family.
I see. And what caused that? Why'd they go back? You didn't want to keep them here? There was too much.
They wanted to go back.
They wanted to go back, right?
Yeah, they wanted.
They
to
knew
go
about
back.
your life, obviously, right?
Hmm?
They knew about your life. The kids you had at New Mexico, they knew about your life. They knew about the shit that you did. They knew about the mob life. They knew what you did, didn't they?
They got intrigued when they came here with me.
Mm.
They were 7 and 9 years old.
Right,
My daughter 9 and my son was 7.
right.
Then they stayed here. And
Did they know about your life, though?
Yes.
They did.
Yes.
Eventually, though. Not when they were here,
No,
but
no,
eventually
no.
when they got into
when
their
they got
teens.
older, like their teenage.
Were they fascinated by that world?
I imagine so.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
They got red carpet treatments and whatnot.
Have
you
they
know.
done well now for themselves? Have they got?
Yeah, well,
they didn't go into a life of crime.
My son
Did they?
builds mobile homes in Vegas,
Okay.
and my daughter is with the
I
State
might
Department.
need to use his services if he builds mobile homes. I'm thinking about building one. And the daughter is
My
what?
daughter is with the State Department.
Right. She works for the government.
Yeah.
Doesn't the government do any
Yeah.
background
She
checks
wo-
to see
she
what? The
she works across the street in the state building,
Right.
across the street from Beneficial Finance Company, the place I held up.
She works right across the street from that bank that you held up. When you did that and you held up the bank, did you have the kids at the time? No, this was pre-kids, pre-meeting the woman?
I had the 2 kids then. Yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay, all right.
That's why I held them up. I needed the money to buy some food.
When you think about it, there's something kind of funny in a way about it. there's something tender the way you described. What chapter is it? You remember what chapter it's in?
Yeah, well, just look at it there. They call Welcome to Tucumcari.
Welcome to what?
Tucumcari. That was the name of the hick town I was in.
So you're at the bar and you're drinking again, right? At some point you run out of money and you realize that you need some money to continue drinking, and you were also buying everybody drinks as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you realize you need some money, and you go to the bartender and you ask him for a gun? You ask him if he had any?
Well, it wasn't unusual there. The bartenders had everything. Drugs, guns.
And he gave it to you. He gave you a gun.
$25.
Oh, you gave him $25 and he gave you a gun.
I didn't give him the $25 yet. I kept my drink there, and he gave me the gun.
And you go right across the street, right?
I filled out a loan application.
That's right. You
for
try.
$500.
And that's what's the interesting part about it is, you said, I'm going to do this the right way.
Yeah.
But did it not cross your mind, though, when you fill out an application that nobody knows who the fuck Tony Rayo is?
Well, they knew
It's almost like a kid in a way that you're not realizing that this loan, in other words, I could have told, if I was there at the bar, I could have said, you know what? You stand a slim chance of going across the street, applying for a loan and getting the money.
No, I used Tony Napoli, not Tony Rayo.
No, I think in the book it says Tony Rayo, doesn't it? You put down Tony Rayo on the loan application, didn't you?
No, Tony Napoli.
Yeah, but didn't they come back at you and they said, we don't know, there's no Tony Rayo that exists?
Tony Napoli, Tony Rio, Tony Canyon.
All right, now you're going to get me to look up the goddamn.
Yeah, look it up.
What is it, 170? I want to get to the part where you walk into the bank.
Finance company.
I was on a mission. As I crossed the street back to the beneficial finance company and barged in through their doors, I walked right up to the manager's desk and announced, "All right, guy, I'm here for my money." The manager looked back up at his desk. "Yes, Mr. Rayo, was it? You did put on the application. You didn't put Tony Napoli. You put Tony Rayo because the guy is saying to you, Mr. Rayo, was it?" And you said, "That's right. There were a few problems with your application." Problems, you say? Well, for one, your name. The manager shuffled some papers. The Social Security, so you gave the Social Security number to Tony Napoli, but you put Tony Rayo as your name. And the guy says, it doesn't match up. The name and the number don't match up, right? Which one is you? You say, both of them. I got a lot of different names I go by, which is absurd. See, now that's cute in and of itself because
I was waiting up to get that money. Go ahead.
I understand that, but did it not occur to you that you walk into a bank and you're talking to a bank manager and you're saying, I have a lot of different names that you're going by?
I knew the conclusion.
You knew the conclusion.
Yes, the conclusion was I was going to have them stamp it approved to give me the money.
But here's the deal, though. You knew that it was going to be rejected, did you not? You had to know. Right, but you didn't give a fuck. You were just toying around with them, right?
I knew I was going to have him stamp it approved.
Right, because you're going to whip the gun out.
That's right.
Right, okay.
And he did.
Right, so basically you walked in there and you got rejected and you say, fuck it, I tried it the right way. Let's do it my way.
Yeah.
You pull the gun out.
Yeah.
All right, and you say, okay, look, you don't want to give me a loan, I'm going to rob you.
I said, no. I said, stamp that approved. I went behind the counter and took the money out of the register.
Right, but you had the gun in hand.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So this is the most entertainment part about this. Okay.
Yeah.
You just robbed the bank. Okay.
A finance company.
Oh, who gives a fuck? They got money in the building. Okay. So you robbed a company with money. Okay. Whether it's you call it a bank or a finance company, you robbed this place
with alcohol in me.
Most people, when they rob a bank or a finance company, what they do is they get into a car and they drive away in a getaway car.
Yeah.
What did you do?
I walked in there. I'm not a professional robber.
Right, but what did you do after you left the finance
I went back to the bar.
You went back to the bar. What did you do? You bought your friends a bunch of drinks.
I had to give the guy the $25 for the piece and give him his gun back.
Right. So when you went back in there, though, you gave him the money, you gave him the gun back, and you continued drinking.
Right, and I walked from there to the hotel room I was staying at.
And that's when they nabbed you? They nabbed you there.
2 detectives busted in.
Did you not have any sense of fear in you, though?
No.
When you went back in there and you started drinking?
No, I didn't care if they picked me up or not.
You didn't give a fuck?
In my subconscious mind, what was I thinking of?
Some fucking story.
I got off the phone with a man who said to me, go out and get it. My father. I asked him for the $500. I needed it.
All right, we got 20 minutes left, okay? I want to wind this thing down. So here's the deal.
That's a lot of time.
That's a lot of time, but not really, because we could sit and talk another day. So we
Just remember, that robbery happened After I went back to New Mexico.
We spoke about some really crucial moments in your life and some vital moments in your life. We spoke about you castrated some kid, you robbed a bank,
Yeah.
you had kids out of wedlock, all sorts of things.
A cop over, a crooked cop.
That's right, that's right. I asked you once, I said, there's a lot of interesting things in the book here, but mostly about your dad and the relationship you had there. You know, there's a lot to do with that. And I think that's the main thrust of the book, is you wanted to show my father, my Don, right?
Yeah.
So, the title of the book. So, I asked you, I said, you have a lot of other stories that are not
Yes.
in the book. And a lot of stories you left out because you didn't want to incriminate anybody.
That's right.
There's a lot of people that are still around. You also said you got a lot of shit for the book. A lot of people called you and said, why'd you write a book?
Yeah.
You told me a story once that is not in the book. And I found the story to be pretty amazing. And it really sort of sums up, I think, a lot about, and I don't even know if your daughters know about the story or anybody knows about the story, but it really sums up the fact that you question your father's love. It sums up, on the one hand, your father was a really respected guy. And I know this because I know people that knew him, and even with Danielle, and she told me some stories, and he was a very respected guy, even not just among the people who worked for him, but even store owners, and because he was very generous that way.
And law enforcement officers too.
Right, and that's a rarity, because you rarely see a guy in that world that is so respected like your father was. Okay, so I take my hat off to him, and I'm sure he was a really great guy. But you told me a story once about your sister, your half-sister, Casey. And he said to you, I'm going into this slowly, okay? Because I wanted to discuss this, and I hope you're okay with it, because
That's
it
all right.
really means a lot. So your dad had 2 kids with Jeannie, his second wife, Danielle, and Casey.
My stepmother.
Your stepmother and your half-sisters, right? You half or step?
Half-sisters.
Half-sisters, right.
They're my father's children.
And so Casey turned out to be, she went down the wrong road.
Mainliner.
A what?
A mainliner in the drug business, that's the main line.
Okay. So
Heroin.
I was going to say she just turned out to be, she went down the road with some wrong guys, and she drug addict and this and that. And I got the sense that she became a great source of embarrassment for your father in many ways. And one day your dad said to you, you went down there, he said, go find Casey, and you flew to Arizona, and you found her in a bar, and she was kind of begrudging. And I noticed, even looking at your face right now, you're kind of looking.
Go to Arizona.
Where'd you go? Where'd you fly?
Manhattan, New York. Over here, uptown.
Okay, see, I don't know. I don't know where the truth and the bullshit stops with you. I don't know where the truth starts and the bullshit ends, because
Arizona.
you said, because even as we go through this conversation, but okay, it could be a little bit of the dementia too. I'm not blaming you for. I'm not saying you're a bullshit artist. Maybe up here, but okay, fine. You go and you find Casey, and basically your father said to you, why are you making that face?
Williamsburg Bridge.
Right.
So
Your
that's not in Arizona, is it?
No. Okay, no. Okay, but I thought when you told me the story, you had to fly over to Arizona.
I did for another occasion.
Okay, that's a whole
daughter.
different thing. So let's stick with the story. So basically, you flew, you went to see her. She was working at a bar, or she was at a bar or something?
Yeah, she was a barmaid.
Right, and she didn't want to come out with you. You dragged her out.
Yeah.
You dragged her out.
Dragged her out.
And this is just on your father's orders. And you dragged her out. You put her in a car. You drove over the Williamsburg Bridge.
And I
and
had
your
three,
father.
3 men with me.
And 3 men with you, right.
3
So
of my
basically,
crew.
you kidnapped your half-sister.
Yes.
And your father said to you, your father said, stop in the middle of the Williamsburg Bridge and throw her off the bridge. So basically what we have now is we have a situation where a father is commanding his son to throw his daughter, your sister, your half-sister, and kill her and throw her off the bridge. And thankfully, you saw the barbarity in that.
Yes.
You saw how savage it was. and you
I
decided.
know he didn't mean it.
Well, wait a minute, time out. So that was the question I was going to ask you. You knew he didn't mean it, but then when he came back, you said, I didn't do it. He basically said, you see how tough this life is. You see it's not that easy to do, right?
It's hard to get rid of one of your own kind.
Do you feel like he didn't mean it?
I know he didn't mean it.
Yeah, but what if you did it though? What if you did it? What if you were drunk? What if one of you guys did it accidentally? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you didn't mean it. In other words,
they knew. They were just driving me there. They had their pieces on them. I had to go into a drug pen to get her.
Yeah.
And her boyfriend, that she went to Seattle with him.
When he told you to do this, was he half smiling?
There was no lights in the room. He was laying down in his bed in his townhouse.
So basically,
And I went back a second time to see him. You sure you want this done? You do it.
So wait a minute, you wanted it done? On some level, did you want it done? You felt it was an embarrassment?
Well, I didn't look at embarrassment. I looked at
See, that's
the way
something
they treated him.
That's something you never told me, though.
The way they treated him.
Okay, so basically, you're saying
both
you
daughters.
initiated this in the beginning. And basically now, I mean, this is quite a confession. You initiated this, and he basically said, fuck off. If you want it, you do it yourself. And then when it came time to get to the bridge, you just said, this is crazy. What am I doing, right? Right.
No.
And did you think that towards Danielle as well?
No.
Because Danielle's a sweet girl. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, I know she's a little bit. She went through some tough times in her life.
She's
But
in another world sometimes.
okay, well, maybe I kind of
with
agree
the
with you.
candle and the devil or something. Whatever.
All right, fine. That's neither here nor there. But I'm just saying, though, I mean, these are very, very strong.
I keep in touch with Casey.
You do.
She's in Seattle.
Do you
I
think-
send her money once in a while.
Right, but what if Casey sees this? In other words, did she? So at that time, at that night, did she know that maybe you were trying to do what you were going to do?
You know what she said?
What?
My father came to my house the next morning, about 6 in the morning,
Yeah.
and I told him she's in Woodhall Hospital. He said to my wife, Laura,
Yeah.
you see, it's hard to get rid of your own kind.
Right, but what did Casey say? In other words,
Gonna
well,
tell
I
you
asked you a
something.
very specific question.
They
I
went
said,
to pick Casey up with one of his own crew members.
I see, I got
At
you.
the hospital.
At the hospital. Why? Because you kind of beat her up a bit.
Oh,
Why was she at the
I
hospital?
gagged her, and I wasn't supposed to gag a drug addict. They could suffocate.
Right.
I gagged her with a handkerchief.
Right,
and
you say that so
she
cavalierly.
was screaming in the car.
Right.
You know what Casey told my father?
What?
Casey said, no, Brother Tony rescued me.
Wow.
That was her statement to my father.
Even though she was well aware
she
that.
didn't know she didn't know my father sent me. Nobody ever told
I
her.
understand that, but was she aware that that your plan was to throw her off the bridge? Was she
Yes.
aware? She was aware of that.
No, yeah, but the
She
car.
was aware of that.
Of course.
Right, but at some point you backed out, and then
No, I had 2 men that stopped it.
you were going to do it?
I don't know.
And so your friends basically said, hey, come on, Tony, this is crazy. You
No,
can't.
they said more than that. They grabbed me and they threw me in the car.
Wow. Okay, so Casey saw all this.
Yes.
Right? And she
had a handkerchief
the
in
next,
her mouth.
I know, but the next day though, she just sort of the way
I rescued her. She
that
said
was her interpretation of this
Yeah.
whole thing.
she was going to go in here in this book. My co-writer said, well, we should have a chapter that the rescue of Casey.
Right. You said a lot, and I learned something new. I was going to ask you if you learned anything, but I learned that it really wasn't your dad. I mean, kind of indirectly said, okay, you do it. I don't want anything to do with it, because you were bugging him about Casey. And now you're telling me that it really was your idea initially to do this thing.
No, he told me to go get her with your crew.
I understand that, but you said he was lying on the bed.
Yeah.
Here we go, back and forth again.
Yeah.
So, but basically, though, he said, I don't want to do it. If you want to do it, you do it.
He didn't say that. Or basically, he gave me orders.
Yeah.
Go get her and throw her over the bridge.
That's what he said.
That's what he said. So I went downstairs in the townhouse.
I
went
can't tell
wait.
with you where the truth starts and the bullshit ends, because you just said to me, that maybe it was your idea. Now you're telling me it was his initial idea. I don't know.
No.
Either way, whether it's your idea or his idea, it's a bad idea. Is that fair to say?
Wait, you're interpreting the before and the after effect. Now, when I went to the house, he called me to come to the house, the townhouse in New York.
Right.
And I had a couple of my crew members with me. He said, bring a couple of your guys with you.
Right.
And I went in his bedroom upstairs, and I went in and he told me, go get her, you know where she's at, and throw her over the bridge. She was with that guy Richie, her boyfriend.
Richie, yeah, bad guy. Yeah, not a good guy.
So I went back downstairs, and I said to the boys, wait. I went back up. I said, you sure you want this done? He said, do what I told you to do.
Wow. Didn't you fight him on some level? Didn't you say, hey, this is crazy. What am I doing? What are you asking me to do?
No.
Because you're talking about a father asking his son to kill his daughter and your half-sister.
Listen, let me tell you something. You go into this, and then he also asked me to throw Jeannie off the roof. My stepmother.
Oh my God, that's quite a
What do you think happened?
You mean off the townhouse?
Yeah. What do you think happened?
What
They
happened?
had a leak in the roof.
Oh my God.
Now wait a second.
It's such a
I was in a
barbaric.
lumber business then.
It's such a
He said,
barbaric world that you
He
describe.
said, tell her you're going to repair, you're going to look at the roof. And she went up there to help me open the exit, the fire exit door. I went up the steps and she went up in the elevator. And I met her up there. And I said, is that toward the edge here someplace, you know, where the leak is?
Let me ask
Now,
you
what do you think happened when I got up there?
What?
My father was up there.
And he stopped it. He stopped it, right? He said, okay, this is crazy.
So
Look.
did he use me that way? Did he want me around?
How does this make you feel? I mean, because we're 3 minutes, but let's just keep this thing short.
You're talking about a man who was in alcohol.
Right, I understand it, but how does it make you feel that your father played these games on some level
Of
with
course,
you?
I know what my father was capable of.
Right. What did we learn here? Did you learn anything today? How do you feel?
I feel all right.
You feel
Of course,
okay?
I meditate about these things all my life,
Right.
Most of the time. But the times
Have they had an impact on you? I mean, just in your mind, the thoughts weighing you down all the time?
The only thing is how he gave things away and didn't keep for the immediate family.
Will you come back for part 2? I don't think we scratched the surface. I think there's a lot more we have to say. Will you come back for part 2? Part 2 with the kids, with all 3 kids here.
You want me to come back?
Come back with all 3 kids, with your 3 daughters.
Oh, I couldn't talk like this in front of my daughters.
Okay, so we'll
They'd
ask
have to
different
read
questions.
it or
then.
something.
We'll ask different questions.
Whatever. I mean, I let them have their privacy too, because a lot of stuff that I didn't do a second edition or a third edition is still, the blueprints are in here because of respect to them under Laura.
We got 2 minutes. What else you want to add? How do you want to conclude this conversation?
I could talk freely and open-minded about violence and whatnot because I know I was controlled by alcohol.
Right.
And I found sobriety, and I know all of that was another world.
When you say you're controlled by alcohol on some level, what do you say to somebody who says you're just excusing your violent behavior? You're copping out.
Then I would come forward and say, well, listen, I don't need an alcohol in me to beat the shit out of you.
All I ask of you is for you to prove these words are true. You better learn to show consideration. All I ask of you is to listen to my point of view. You better learn to show consideration. You should have learned to show consideration.